My name is Mark Evans. I was a pastor. I was a spiritual advisor. I spent years guiding people, speaking about faith, warning about deception, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. I died, and in those moments beyond life, I saw something I was never meant to see. I know how this sounds. I wouldn't have believed it either. If someone had told me this a year ago, I would have called them crazy. But now, I know the truth. And if you're watching this, you still have time. Not much. I spent years believing that faith was eternal, that no matter what happened in the world, people would always turn to God. But I was wrong. There is a shift happening, a quiet transformation, so subtle that most people don't even notice. They don't see the signs. They don't question the changes. They accept it little by little, believing it's progress, believing it's for the greater good. And by the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late, because this isn't just about politics. It isn't just about technology. It's about something much bigger. A new faith is rising, not one built on scripture or tradition, not one that speaks of salvation through God. No, this is different. This is a faith built on power, a faith built on control. And the men behind it, they are not prophets, they are not saviors. They are builders, architects, visionaries, and you trust them, you follow them. Some of you worship them already, even if you don't realize it. That's the genius of it. The greatest deception is not forced, it's chosen. They don't need to take your freedom. You'll give it to them willingly. I saw the future. I saw what happens when the world embraces this new faith. And the men who lead it, they're already here. You know their names, you've heard their promises, but when you see who they truly are, you will understand why I had to come back. I remember the exact moment my body gave up. I was speaking at a small event, nothing big. Just another gathering, another conversation about faith, about the shifting world. But something felt off that night. I had been feeling it for months. The weight in the air, the sense that something unseen was pressing down, shifting reality in ways most people couldn't perceive. Then, in the middle of a sentence, it hit me, a sharp, crushing pain in my chest. My breath vanished. The microphone slipped from my fingers, a dull thud echoing through the speakers as it hit the floor. People gasped, rushed toward me, but their voices became distant, distorted. I tried to move. I couldn't. My vision blurred, then tunneled, the edges darkening, like ink spreading across a page. The last thing I heard before the world faded was someone shouting my name. Then nothing, but I didn't stop existing. I was still aware. I expected blackness, I expected silence, but what I felt was movement, fast, weightless, as if I were being pulled through an invisible current. My body was gone, yet I was somewhere, a place beyond life. I tried to speak, but I had no voice. I tried to reach out, but I had no hands. I was pure consciousness, drifting through an endless void. Then the void shattered. Light, blinding, white-hot, not warm but cold, sterile, like a fluorescent bulb in a dark room, and just as suddenly the silence was replaced by sound. Not a single noise, but layers upon layers of whispers, murmurs, voices speaking in unison, overlapping, blending together. I couldn't understand the words, but I could feel them. A presence surrounded me. No, not one, many, watching, examining, measuring. I wasn't in heaven, I wasn't in hell, I was somewhere else. The voices grew louder like a rising tide, and then, through the chaos, I felt it. Something pulling me forward, not dragging, guiding. A city emerged before me. I say city, but it wasn't like anything I had ever seen before. Towering structures of glass and metal stretched high into a sky that pulsed like a living thing. The streets below were too clean, too perfect. No cracks, no debris, no signs of imperfection. It was beautiful, it was artificial, and the people, they moved in perfect unison. No wandering glances, no conversations, just synchronized steps as if following a silent command. Then I saw the screens, massive, glowing, displayed on every building, covering entire city blocks. A face filled them all, watching, smiling, speaking, but there was no sound. I recognized him instantly, and my soul froze. Because I knew what this place was. I knew what it meant. This wasn't a dream, this wasn't a vision, this was the future, and it had already begun. I stood at the edge of the impossible, staring into a future I was never meant to see. The city stretched endlessly before me, metal and glass, sleek and perfect, glowing with an unnatural light. The sky above wasn't the sky I knew. It pulsed, alive, shifting between hues of deep blue and silver, as if the heavens themselves had been rewritten by something artificial. And the people, they moved in harmony, precise, calculated, not a single step out of place. No laughter, no idle conversations. Just synchronized existence, as if they weren't individuals anymore, but pieces of something greater, something unified. I took a step forward, and the moment my foot touched the ground, a sensation shot through me like a jolt of static electricity. Wasn't supposed to be here. The air was thick with something unseen, something pressing against my soul. A presence, everywhere, yet nowhere. I could feel it, wrapping itself around the city like an invisible force, humming beneath the surface of reality. Then the screens changed. The massive displays that covered every building flickered in unison. The shifting lines of text, the silent commands scrolling across their surfaces disappeared, and then his face appeared, not just on one screen, on every screen, on every reflective surface. A man I had seen countless times before, a man the world adored, the genius, the innovator, the visionary, Elon Musk. His expression was calm, almost serene, his gaze piercing yet unreadable. The same gaze that millions had looked upon with admiration, with trust, with hope. But here, in this place, it felt different. It felt absolute. Turned, looking around at the people walking through the city. Every single one of them had stopped, their heads tilted upward, eyes fixed on the screens, breathless, waiting, listening, but he wasn't speaking, his lips weren't moving, and yet I could hear him, not through sound, not through speakers, inside my mind. The voice wasn't loud, but it was everywhere, surrounding me, pressing into me like a tide, pulling me deeper into the ocean. The time of division is over. The path to unity has begun. A chill ran down my spine. I turned back to the screens, but he was no longer looking at the crowd. He was looking at me. His expression remained unchanged, but somehow I knew. He saw me. He knew I was here. The final step is near. The new world awaits. I stepped backward, my pulse hammering in my ears. My mind screamed at me to run, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know if there was anywhere to go. The city felt endless. No exits, no escape. I turned, desperately scanning the streets, looking for something, anything, that wasn't part of this controlled, perfect machine. And that's when I saw it, a symbol, faint, almost hidden, embedded into the skin of every person walking past me. On their hands, on their foreheads. A mark. It wasn't ink, it wasn't a tattoo. It pulsed with a faint glow, shifting like liquid, metal beneath their skin, and I understood. This wasn't just control, this was devotion, this was worship. They hadn't been forced into this. They had chosen it. They had given themselves willingly. I felt my breath catch as realization crashed into me. This wasn't just a city. This was a temple, a kingdom built not on faith, but on submission. And Elon Musk wasn't just a leader. He was a god. I turned again, panic rising in my chest. I had to wake up. I had to leave this place. But the moment the thought crossed my mind, the ground beneath me shifted, the air thickened, pressing down on me like an invisible weight. And the voice returned. "You do not belong here." The city blurred. The sky darkened. And then I was falling. The city, the screens, the people, everything blurred into streaks of light, stretching infinitely in every direction. My body was weightless, pulled by an unseen force, dragged through a space that shouldn't exist. Then suddenly, stillness. I wasn't falling anymore. I wasn't anywhere. A new place formed around me, materializing from nothing. White marble floors stretched endlessly beneath my feet, polished like glass, reflecting a soft golden glow from above. Towering pillars lined the space, vanishing into the sky. If this place even had a sky, it looked like a temple. No, a throne room. And at the far end of the room, standing beneath an arch of light, was him, Elon Musk. But he wasn't just a man. Here, his presence was overwhelming, consuming the space like a force of nature. The air around him shimmered, bending and twisting as if reality itself struggled to contain him. He turned, his movements slow, deliberate, his expression unreadable yet strangely familiar. I had seen this before, not just in this vision, not just in the city. I had seen this in history. I had seen this in prophecy. "You came before your time," he said, his voice smooth, controlled. It wasn't just sound, it was inside me, vibrating in my skull, threading through my thoughts. "But now that you are here, let me show you what awaits." I wanted to run. I wanted to wake up, but my body didn't move. He raised his hand, and the space around us shifted. The walls dissolved into moving images, playing out like living history. I saw the rise of nations, the collapse of empires. I saw wars fought in the name of freedom, in the name of power, in the name of God. Chaos, he said simply. Centuries of it. Division, conflict, rebellion against order. The images changed, cities burning, riots in the streets, people turning against one another, driven by fear, by ideology, by endless struggle. "This is what you call free will." I clenched my fists. "You took their choice away," I said through gritted teeth. I gave them peace. The images shifted again, the world transformed, the chaos fading. The streets became clean, the cities became orderly, people moving in perfect harmony. Just like the city I had seen before, no division, no war, no suffering. "They are unified now," he continued. "One world, one mind, one vision. No more uncertainty, no more fear." I shook my head. "They don't worship God anymore, they worship you." For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Not anger, amusement. "Is that what troubles you?" he asked. "That they no longer kneel to the unseen, that they no longer fear what they do not understand." He stepped closer, the air thickening around him. "They worship what is real, what they can see, what has given them everything they were promised." My pulse pounded in my ears. "You're the Antichrist." The words left my mouth before I could stop them. He didn't flinch, he didn't deny it, he just smiled. "That word," he said slowly, "belongs to the past. The old myths, the old fears, the old superstitions. The world has outgrown them. They have outgrown him." He raised his hand again, and for a brief moment I saw something beneath his skin, a glow, something not human, something beyond human. "The old gods are dead," he said softly, "and I have given them something greater." The room darkened, the walls trembled. I felt my mind slipping, drowning in something vast, something infinite. He reached out his hand. "Join us." The words weren't a command, they were an invitation, and in that moment I understood why they followed him. The promise, the peace, the unity, the absolute certainty that there would be no more pain, no more struggle. All I had to do was accept it, but deep inside me, something screamed. I gritted my teeth, summoning every ounce of will left in me. No, his expression didn't change, but the air around him did. The illusion flickered. The perfection wavered, and for the first time, I saw what he truly was. A thing wrapped in light, a shadow clothed in brilliance, a force that had existed long before this moment, long before humanity had ever built its first machine, a deceiver, a destroyer. I had to get out. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to step back. The temple shook. The walls rippled, distorting like liquid, like the entire world was about to collapse. His voice remained calm. You cannot stop what has already begun. A deafening crack split the air. And then I was falling. The world shattered around me. Light. Exploding in every direction. My body was ripped backward, yanked through space and time. And then I woke up. I woke up gasping, my lungs desperate for air. My head throbbed like I had been hit with a sledgehammer, and for a brief moment I didn't know where I was. The world around me flickered, reality struggling to settle. Then it hit me. I was back. The ceiling above me wasn't the sterile white of the facility. The bed wasn't cold steel. I was in a cheap motel room, the flickering neon light from outside, casting eerie patterns across the stained walls. I struggled to sit up, my body aching from whatever they had done to me. My hands were shaking. My clothes were damp with sweat. The last thing I remembered was Trump standing over me, his voice blending with Musk's, telling me that I couldn't stop what was coming. But I was still here, and that meant I had a chance. I reached for my phone. The screen was cracked. No signal, of course. They had wiped it, cut me off from everything. My accounts were probably already deleted. My name erased from every system. They were making me disappear. A sudden noise outside snapped me to attention. A car engine idling too long, footsteps heavy and deliberate moving toward my door. I wasn't alone. My heart pounded. I moved quickly but quietly, grabbing the motel key from the nightstand. I had to go, now. I slipped out the back, the cold night air hitting my face like a slap. I kept my head down, my pulse hammering in my ears. I didn't know how long I had been unconscious. Hours, days. They had let me go, but not because they were done with me. Because they wanted me to run, they wanted me to be afraid, and they wanted me to know they were watching. I moved through the empty streets, pulling my hoodie over my head. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every passing car sent a chill down my spine. My instincts screamed that I was being followed. But when I turned, there was nothing. They weren't going to grab me off the street. No, that would be too obvious, too messy. They were going to erase me the same way they had erased everyone else who refused to comply. I needed proof. I needed to show the world what I had seen. I found a 24-hour internet cafe, the kind where no one asks questions. The old man behind the counter barely glanced at me as I paid in cash and took a seat in the back. The computer booted up, the glow of the screen illuminating my face. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I hesitated. What if I was already too late? What if they had rewritten the world around me? I typed Musk's name first. His latest announcement was everywhere. A new phase in the Neural Evolution Initiative. Faster, better implants, full integration, a world where thinking and technology were no longer separate. I typed Trump's name next. A global summit. Talks of unity, a new system of governance that transcended nations, leaders from every major country pledging loyalty to a vision of a shared future. The pieces were already falling into place. I clicked on a random news link, but instead of loading, the screen froze. Then the cursor moved on its own. A single line of text appeared. You need to stop. My breath caught in my throat. My hands clenched into fists. Then another message. We see you. The lights in the cafe flickered. The screen went black. I pushed away from the desk, heart pounding. The old man at the counter didn't react. I wasn't safe here. I wasn't safe anywhere. I grabbed my bag and walked out into the night, forcing myself to stay calm. They were testing me, toying with me, letting me know that no matter where I went, they were always one step ahead. But they had made a mistake. They had let me go, and as long as I was alive, I had a chance to expose them. I just had to move fast. I don't know how long I have. I've been moving from place to place, staying off the grid, avoiding anything that could leave a trace. But it doesn't matter. They always find me. They don't need to chase me. They just need to wait, because eventually people like me disappear. I used to think the future was uncertain, that no one really knew what was coming, but I was wrong. The future has already been decided. The system is already in place. The transition has already begun, and you are part of it, whether you realize it or not. They're not hiding it anymore. You see it in the way people worship technology, in the way they cling to every word from the men shaping the world. You see it in the way they've turned leaders into prophets, CEOs into gods. They call it progress. They call it innovation, but I've seen what's waiting on the other side. It's not freedom, it's control. It's a world where faith is rewritten, where the idea of God is replaced with something they can measure, control, own. A world where loyalty isn't to a higher power, but to a system, one designed to remove anyone who refuses to comply. And the ones leading it, you know their names. Elon Musk is not just a businessman. He's not just an innovator. He is the architect of something far greater, a vision where humanity no longer makes choices, because the choices will be made for them. Neural integration, AI governance, a society where thought itself is regulated. And Trump? He was never just a politician. He was a symbol, a force powerful enough to unite and divide in equal measure. The perfect catalyst to break the old world apart, to make way for something new. A new empire, a new kingdom, a new religion. It doesn't matter if you believe me. It doesn't matter if you laugh, if you call me crazy, if you shut this video off right now, because soon you'll see it for yourself. The shift is happening. The world is choosing its God, and when the time comes, you will have to make a choice too. You can ignore the warnings. You can pretend nothing is changing. You can close your eyes and wait for it to come, or you can wake up, because once the mark is required, once the final step is taken, there is no going back. I don't know how much longer I have before they find me, but if this message is still here, if you're still hearing my voice, then you still have time, but not much.